James is going to talk about 1,001 books you must read before you die.
Before they kill you.
And I'm going to talk about Aftertaste Series 2, which got top of the stack, but I only have 2 on the stack, so that doesn't say a whole lot. And then I found this funny. I was eating these sunflower seeds this week because they were given to me. And I just eat a little bit at a time, and it says kids safety sunflower seeds are never recommended for infants or toddlers as the seeds can pose a choking threat to their safety. And I thought, well, that's funny because you'll have to feed your kids something else with MSG in it then. But gosh, who would give their kids or like their toddlers sunflower seeds? I mean, if they put it on the package, you'd think, okay, well, it happened then, right?
It has happened. That's why there are warnings and so on and so forth.
Anyway, Aftertaste Series 2. It was, you know what, when I see something coming out of Australia, I tend to think, oh, okay, this isn't going to be good, right? But lately, okay, I had one on the top of the stack yesterday that I reviewed that it was an Australian series, and now here's another one. And you'll recognize a face from 6 Feet Under, if you like that show. And this was pretty funny. I enjoyed it. It probably wouldn't have got the top of the stack on another day, but today it did. And it was enjoyable. This one I won't even try to say the title of, but it felt like an indie sort of film, and it was written and directed by the same fellow, so maybe it was sort of about his experiences in college or whatever, I don't know. But the young man who's the main character in this, he's a really likable character, you know. Came from a loving family, and he ends up with meeting a bunch of people in college that are from all different backgrounds, and he has a lot of heartache, and he doesn't really know how to connect with other people. And you know, I watched, what was it, Angry Neighbors or something like that. The other day I reviewed it, and in that one, the guy, he's talking to his dog all the time. He lives alone with his dog, and he talks to his dog, and his dog talks back to him. And in this one, the young man, he's talking to his little stuffed animal that looks like a dog, and there's subtitles for the dog. The dog's talking back to him because he doesn't really know how to relate to other people, and he was happy at home with his family, as they were very loving together, and now he's in this group of people and he doesn't know how to connect with. But eventually he finds some people to connect with, so he sticks it out. And anyway, it wasn't that good, but I watched it through to the end. So now I guess James will talk about where to invade next, and hopefully wrap that up and talk about 1,000 books, because 1,000 books, I guess you're just going to have to look in the book to find out all the 1,000 books, because to list them would be incredible. That would take us way too long.
Not when it comes to the half of them that maybe are legit.
Oh, okay.
Because I will say, you know, I'm not going to get to it, but of the 1,001 books, half of them are recent.
Oh, okay.
So
you can just weed those right out of there, you're saying, and let them, just let them stand the test of time. I mean? Maybe read them at the end of your life. See if they've held on that long.
You know what I mean by recent?
Huh? Within the last 100 years?
Since I was born.
Really?
Yeah, it's exactly.
One would expect that there would be more books that are produced that are better products now than in the past, because there's just more people, and there's more people who are literate, more people writing. You'd think there'd be better books, right? So
Dracula. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's good to keep.
Meat and Lunch. It's
Yeah.
above and beyond. There's any variety. I don't know if there's one Chinese classic.
Oh wow, really?
There might be. Oh,
Huh.
I don't know. It's 5 years ago since I read it. It's stunning. You know, like when you think about it, this goes back to Aesop's fables. They date him here to, let's say, about 600 BC. We're going to say, for sake of argument, 500 BC. Just so I can round it off. 2,500 years. Oh, let's say 560 BC or something like that. 554 BC. 2,500 years. There's as many books, 500 books in that time period, as there are for the last 70 years. A little less than 70 years. There's something desperately wrong with that. So they're going along 2,500 years, 500 books. That's 250. That's 25. That's one every 25 years. And then now, since for the last 70 years, you got 700 books. That's 500 books in the last 70 years. 57. That's something like 7 books per year. There's something desperately wrong with this picture. It's just stupid. So the person who owned this before me, I think I got this maybe from a little library. I'm not sure. They maybe I paid 50 cents for a book. Bibles for Missions or whatever. But they checked the stuff that they'd read, and it's like they must have been young or something like that. It's the stuff put out, since 2000 or whatever. It's just sad. No perspective. Anyway, speaking of no perspective, hey, Michael Moore, I know you're old. Well, I suspect you're older than me. Fact is, your age might be catching up with your IQ. You're not 100 years old, so I'm saying, Michael, that your IQ maybe isn't average. Because average IQ, by definition, is supposed to be 100. It's actually a little bit higher, apparently. So, get a real job, bozo. Okay. Have you ever had a real job? Maybe he has. Maybe he used to work in a rendering plant or something like that in Flint, Michigan. Maybe he worked on the factory floor. I don't know. But
I don't think so.
It's hard to say.
Wasn't he talking about one of his shows that he put out? He was talking about how he watched so many movies when he was a teenager. So that's.
I'm not a big fan of people whose life has been shaped by watching movies and reading novels. Got that, Michael Moore? But yeah, that's kind of sounds like him. TV Nation, I think, was his breakthrough.
I've never heard him talk about any actual work he's done, besides the filmmaking, right? Like he was.
I guess I never have. I was thinking about that when I was sitting there, looking at him upside down, and it doesn't look much better upside down, I gotta say. Lose some weight, bozo. All that chow that you seem to think you care about third world stuff. Eat less food and make a contribution to. You're making a fortune, presumably, on these stupid movies that you make. Not so much give to the poor, but donate to education. Okay. So let me see. I'm going to have to watch this again to see all the crazy stuff he's doing. So, what was it? Oh, what was it?
Well, you've moved past Tunisia and Iceland. I don't know where you were going from there.
Yeah, we're talking about Iceland. They were talking about the meltdown. I maybe was talking to you more about it, but yeah, the meltdown in 2008. And he's saying the Americans should prosecute their criminal banks in the United States the way they did Iceland. They should. But the criminality in the case of Iceland was way worse. They took the economy down to the brass tacks there. It wasn't the same thing in the United States. The United States had two. Yeah, I did talk about it. They had 4 quarters of economic meltdown. It wasn't the same thing. You know, so how are you going to get people on side with doing that? When you do political stuff, this is what so many nifty, shifty lefties like Michael Moore don't understand. You got to get people on side. But a lot of these flunkies believe in revolution. You know, the world's been there and done that, or had that done to them. Revolution. Guess what? Every revolution in the world, from what I can tell, every one of them, peaceful as well as violent, has been unsuccessful, blusteringly unsuccessful, since there's only been 2 that I can tell that have worked. And one was the Glorious Revolution of England, and it was relatively peaceful. And how far back does that date? 1688, 1689. It's more than 200. What is that? 1700. It's more than 300 years ago. And the second one to work, it was pretty violent. It was American Revolution. It ended up having its faults and stuff like that, slavery among them, but it's kind of worked. Pache, this idiot, it kind of has worked. You know, he's flapping the American flag around, ironically. The American Constitution allows him to go around doing what would in other countries be considered treasonous. And that's what he should be allowed to do. But we should be allowed to laugh at his oppositionism. So that flag, you know, represents the Constitution, a lot of other things, and that Constitution protects freedom of speech pretty well in the United States. That freedom of speech, of course, is getting attacked from all sides. So right-wingers are hammering down on, but lefties are hammering down on us, particularly on college campuses and so on and so forth. So let me see, what was it about Portugal? Well, there was one place, I think it was, we'll talk about the educational system in Finland. He was glorifying the educational system in Finland up to the skies. And he's saying Finland has based on, it have to be something like standardized tests. They don't believe in standardized tests there, and he definitely doesn't. And he's claiming that it has the best educational system in the world. But it's a tie. Who's it tied with, you know?
The United States?
No. The United States
Canada?
No, Canada actually is not a very good system.
Okay, I have
Most
no idea.
of Canada. They've actually tested the provinces individually.
Oh, they have. Alberta. Yeah.
And they have standardized tests, you stupid moron. They've got standards. So what's the difference between Finland and
Which I have
United
mentioned
States?
has its problems, because if you have somebody like Pauline who walks into the standardized test and decides, I don't feel like doing this, and just marks off a bunch of A, B, C, D,
You
C,
monkey guessed, in other words.
Yeah. Then that's not going to prove anything. That's not going to show anything.
Yeah. Pauline's come a long way. from. She's actually very good at writing poetry, writing song lyrics, and things like that. So she's come a long way. And she's got a university degree.
But if you have somebody like James, who really cared about that sort of thing, and
I didn't actually.
Well, you must have cared enough to impress your mom. You didn't want to make your mom unhappy with you.
In grade 12, I was bummed. It was a separate school board, and I'm going to mention the place, Sterling, Alberta. I got along with the boys. The girls didn't get along well with my sisters. And there were some nice teachers. I'm going to mention a nice teacher. There was a guy called Daryl Nilsson. And he taught me French. He was a very nice guy. He's Mormon. A very nice guy. So I'm not going to brand everyone, with the same logo. But the principal and vice principal were, they were absolutely nutso. So, well, let's just say stupid. I'm not going to give them the out that they were crazy or something like that. So in grade 12, that was 71, 72, and Big Hair was making it with guys back then. So they came up with a rule. You can't play on the basketball team. This was in fall of 71. You can't play on then that's the only, I think we participated in track and field events between schools. I think it would have been in Warner County, southeast of Lethbridge, Alberta. And Lethbridge, Alberta, in case you folks aren't reading up on Canadian geography, is southeast of Calgary. If you don't know where Calgary is, well, it's close to 1.5 million people. Maybe better is pull out your old pronouncing gazetteer, okay? And I don't care where in the world you're at. You don't know where Calgary is, you're nowhere. Okay? There's lots of people who are nowhere when it comes to places in China, like Chengdu. Oh, everyone knows about Wuhan. No, we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, they wanted to clamp down on guys growing hair in Sterling. Separate school board, and we're not talking about Catholic school board. They actually had a Mormon school board. Now I'm going to mention the religion, Mormon. So the guys who are behaving like Jack Mormons, generally, there were the occasional exceptions. I was going to say there was the occasional exception. There was one exception that I can think of. He's a nice guy. I'm going to call him Wayne. He was a good guy. But the Jack Mormons were good guys too, and friendly. And, I was young for my grade, second youngest boy in the grade. And they weren't, these guys were, most of the Mormon kids were like strong farm kids. They weren't like snapping towels at me in the locker room, twisting my nipples or stuff like that. Someone said about Terry Bradshaw, someone, I think in Rolling Stone, he's the kind of guy who twists your nipples in the shower. I was sitting there thinking, Terry Bradshaw looks like the guy who just twist your nipples, just in the hallways at school or whatever, Of course, some of you guys might swear by Terry Bradshaw, not at him. But that's another story. A sports story. Anyway, they weren't going to let you be on the basketball team if your hair was below your collar or more than halfway below the middle of your ear. Wow, okay. But the other thing is they weren't going to let you write, if you were in grade 12, they weren't going to let you write departmentals. Those were the provincially mandated standardized exams. They had them back then. And so they had them at the end of the first semester. I think it was in January sometime, and then at the end of the second semester. So yeah, you know, you could kind of let your hair grow, but when that time came around, they were going to be out with a ruler or whatever and rule over you. So Pauline was thinking I was motivated. I wasn't terribly motivated. So, and it got worse. So when I wrote to my second departmentals, I kind of got burned out on these. Well, the principal, who was a bozo, had a master's degree in, I believe, in mathematics. And I'm going to mention his name, Jose, the one-armed bandit. He had one arm, and it had seemed to bitterize him or something like that. I made a neologism. I hope you'll forgive me. No, I don't care whether you forgive me, you stupid bozos. But, he was teaching me chem and math. That's all I was taking that semester. And yeah, I did well on the chem. So the mark that he sent in was 79% or something like that. And what I got cumulatively was something like, I think it was 87%. So you add the 8 marks, he was, you see, like half your mark was standard on the standardized test, the provincially mandated ones, and then half was given by the local teacher, the local yokel in the case of Jose, the one-armed bandit. I'm going to mention his last name, Stevenson. Someone was saying that he died of a heart attack, and I mentioned that to one of my the kids who was in my grade. He was a Laymanite. He was adopted into a Mormon family, and a Laymanite means he was a native, maybe 100% native. So I said to him, Joseph Stevenson died of a heart attack, and he said, "Heart? What heart?" And I'm going, touche. I couldn't come up with it. I think they'd have a little trouble locating it. Anyway, Jose, he was teaching me. So I was down, like the cumulative mark was 87%. And they sent in 79, or he sent in a 79 for me. That's 8 below the averaged out mark. So you add 8 to that. What did I get on the provincially mandated exam? 8 plus 97 is 95. So I did well on that, don't you think? 95 is pretty good on chem. But the math thing, and math, usually I was as good at it as I was in chem. My cumulative mark was 81%. He sent in something like 79. They didn't want to give me what was called an H back then, which is equivalent of A. What did H stand for? I can't
Honors?
remember. Honors, that would be it. Very good. And so that means I would have got something like 83%. Maybe I only got 80%, because I'd figured out I only got 81% on the provincially mandated thing. But I burned out on the sphincter, the nether sphincter. I was the one-armed bandit. So, but on the first semester, I was a little less burned out on these stupid chimps. So I had the vice principal teaching me, and he wasn't as bad. He was a bad guy. Had one person who saw a picture of him when he'd been part of the provincial champions. The Raymond Comets. I think it was something like 1955, and I suspect he was the captain of the team. And this person, who's going to remain unnamed, said, just sight unseen, showed the picture to this person. And the person just said, "That guy looks like a douche." And I'm going, I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, awesome, douche. Not a douchebag, not quite that bad, but a douche. And maybe that's worse, I don't know, than a douchebag. At any rate, he was teaching me social studies and English. And what did he send? Yeah, it was just across the board. 79% English, social studies. He just said, we're not going to give him 80. He's not going to get an H. Not from us. Not from us. Pure living Mormons. And so what did I get in English? That was 86%. So you add 7%, 93%. So I did pretty good in English. And French I did. That was with a nice guy. We just didn't have a very good program there. I got a good mark. It was like my cumulative was something like I don't know. It was something like 79% or whatever, 80%. But he sent in 90% for me, and I got it based on what I was. I don't think any kid got over 80%. You just didn't have a French program there. The guy was just starting out. My brother was 3 years ahead of me. He'd had to take French by correspondence. But that means I got like 70% in French. That's not the way I'm now in languages, but that's the way it goes. I was blasting along at 90%, and then I hit I was competing with kids against kids in Calgary, kids in Edmonton, and they basically blew my doors off. So you might as well know about that. And I've got to know about that. Keep that in mind. And I got 0% on the social studies. Final mark. Sent in to 79. How could that happen? Well, when I looked at the marks, and it was in the post office, I went down to the post office, and it just like a block away from the school. Like my main competition at school, she came rumbling back in. She was almost, I'm exaggerating, but almost fainting. She'd got 90% on her English cumulative. And she was, that presumably was her top mark. So the guy said, you want to go down, this was new time, you want to go down to the post office, see what, because the results had been mailed in. All you had to do was, I didn't have the key, but you just had to say, I don't know, it was 879 or something like that. You knew what your parents' post office. It was literally a post office box. And so I said, and he said, come on. So, I wasn't that enthused, I wasn't motivated. And so I went down, and I pull it out, and I see 0. I kept looking to the left as for the social mark. And I saw another 0. And I kept looking to the left because I'm kind of an optimist, and I saw the big 1 there. Luckily enough, if you got that perfect mark, they weren't going to mess it up.
For provincials. So if you got
the perfect mark, they weren't going to mess it up, because otherwise it would have been something like, maybe they would have rounded it up to 90, but it would have been something like 89.5%. That's why I believe in standardized tests, Michael Moore. You cannot have equal opportunity. I'm not talking about equal outcomes. You cannot have equal opportunity if you don't have standardized tests. And what does that mean? It means objectively framed, objectively marked, and objectively administered, and objectively marked. You cannot have it. Now, maybe in a society like Finland was until recently, where everyone's roughly the same class, everyone's roughly the same nationality. What was that?
Culture.
Everyone's roughly the same culture. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's important. They used to, I believe, have I know in Scandinavia, it was Lutheranism. It was actually the official church. Now, I think Eastern Orthodox, because Finland was part of the Russian Empire for a long, long time, and I'm sure that's a gleam in Putin's eye. 5 minutes?
No, you have 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Tune in next time, Michael Moore. Okay.